crazy? Chris? What have you done?
He's gone! That's right. He stayed so we could all escape. I'm sorry.
Chris Redfield, a name that echoes through the corridors of Resident Evil's storied history. From his humble beginnings as a member of the Special Tactics and Rescue Service, or S.T.A.R.S, to becoming one of the most iconic and enduring figures in the fight against bioterrorism, Chris's journey has been marked by unwavering determination, relentless courage, an unyielding sense of duty, an unending quest for justice, and muscle-bound resistance to even the most harrowing of nightmares. But beneath the surface of his stoic exterior lies a man haunted by loss, betrayal, regret, guilt, and the heavy burden of a seemingly endless war where every victory comes at a very steep cost. This is the story of why Chris Redfield is the most tragic main character in Resident Evil. Chris Redfield's tragic journey began in the Spencer Mansion, the setting of the original Resident Evil, released in 1996 and remade in 2002. As a member of the elite S.T.A.R.S unit, Chris was thrust into a nightmare where he and his team were haunted by the grotesque creations of the Umbrella Corporation. The mansion was a house of horrors, filled with death traps, puzzles, and abominations that pushed Chris and his teammates to their limits. Throughout the game, Chris displayed the qualities that would define his career: courage, leadership, justice, and an unwavering commitment to his mission. However, the events of the mansion left a lasting impact on him. The discovery of Umbrella's involvement in the creation of the T-Virus and the betrayal of his fellow S.T.A.R.S member and captain Albert Wesker, who reveals himself to be working with Umbrella, shattered Chris's trust and forced him to confront the harsh reality of the world he lives in. The deaths of his fellow S.T.A.R.S members weighed heavily on Chris, particularly the loss of his close friend Forrest Speyer, whose mutilated body served as a grim reminder of the dangers they face. The mansion incident marked the beginning of Chris's lifelong battle against Umbrella and bioterrorism, setting the stage for the numerous sacrifices and hardships he would endure in the years and games to come. Resident Evil Code Veronica is a pivotal chapter in Chris's tragic story, as it brings him face to face with his past while he desperately tries to rescue his sister Claire. After Chris learns that Claire is trapped on Rockford Island, he immediately sets off to rescue her, knowing that she has become entangled in the same web of bioterrorism and horror that has haunted him since that fateful night. Throughout the game, his determination to protect his sister is unshakable, even in the face of perilous danger, courtesy not only of the monstrous creations of the Umbrella Corporation, but also of the psychological toll of pushing through what feels like an endless nightmare. This game marks the return of Albert Wesker, who was presumed dead after the events of the mansion incident. Wesker's reappearance is a shock to Chris, as it brings back the memories of betrayal and loss that have defined his life since that horrific night. This re-encounter with Wesker is one of the most intense moments in Chris's career. Wesker, now enhanced with superhuman abilities, taunts Chris with the knowledge that Umbrella's power and influence are far from over, and that he has a personal vendetta against Chris that will never go away. The brutal clashes between them would go on to become defining moments of this game, but they were not just physical confrontations. They were also a collision of ideologies, with Chris representing justice and humanity and Wesker embodying the cold, calculated ambition of Umbrella. Despite the overwhelming odds, Chris fights desperately through the horrors that haunt him, driven by the need to save Claire and to stop Umbrella's reign of terror. In the end, he successfully rescues his sister, but the victory is bittersweet, since he once again came face to face with the true evil of Umbrella, and the lengths to which its members will go to achieve their grim goals. Saving Claire is a moment of relief, but it is overshadowed by the knowledge that the fight is far from over. Chris's determination to bring down Umbrella is left being stronger than ever, as is the burden he carries. The knowledge that as long as Umbrella exists, the people he loves will never be safe. Code Veronica deepens the tragedy of Chris's life by showing the lengths to which he will go to protect those he cares about, even as he is haunted by the specters of his past. The game reinforces the idea that Chris's fight is not just against the bioterrorism, but also against the personal demons that have plagued him since the very beginning of his journey. In Resident Evil 5, Chris embarks on a new mission where he is once again forced to come face to face with his past. The memories of his former partner, Jill Valentine, who was presumed dead after their confrontation with Albert Wesker, haunts him deeply. This personal loss fuels his relentless pursuit of Wesker, who embodies everything Chris despises: betrayal, power-hungry madness, and a disregard for human life. Chris's mission in RE5 is not just about stopping a global threat. It is also about avenging his fallen comrades and seeking closure for the guilt he feels over Jill's presumed death. The many years of fighting and preparing to fight have clearly taken a physical and emotional toll on Chris. Yet his unyielding determination to stop Wesker and his desperate search for justice push him to the brink, forcing him to confront his own limitations and the harsh reality of his chosen path. The revelation that Jill is alive but under Wesker's control is a devastating blow. Chris is forced to make an impossible choice: either save his partner from Wesker's influence or continue his mission to stop a global catastrophe. The eventual showdown with Wesker in the depths of a volcanic island is a testament to Chris's resilience and his willingness to sacrifice everything to protect the world from bioterrorism. However, even in victory, the scars of the battle run deep, and Chris's sense of loss and responsibility remain, particularly regarding Jill's fate and the lives lost along the way. Resident Evil 6 is perhaps the most tragic chapter in Chris's storied career. The game begins with Chris suffering from amnesia, a result of the traumatic events in Edonia, where he loses an entire squad of BSAA soldiers before his very eyes to a BOW ambush orchestrated by Carla Radames, who is impersonating Ada Wong. The weight of this loss is unbearable for Chris, who blames himself for the deaths of his men, leading him to a state of depression and self-imposed exile from the BSAA. He becomes a shadow of his former self, a man broken by the horrors he's witnessed and the lives lost under his command. Chris's journey in RE6 is one of redemption and self-forgiveness. He is reluctantly pulled back into the fight by Pierce Nivens, a young and loyal BSAA operative who looks up to Chris as a mentor and hero. His return reveals that despite everything he's been through, his duty and his desire to fulfill it allow him to rise again. Throughout the game, Chris struggles with the memories of Edonia, the guilt of his failures, the fear of losing more men under his command, and his vendetta against Ada, which occasionally blinds him. His relationship with Pierce becomes a focal point, as Chris sees in him the hope and promise of a future he thought was lost. The very future he desperately fights and has been fighting to protect. Pierce also serves as an anchor to keep Chris from going too far off the rails. A reminder of the things Chris should stand for, what he should really be fighting for, and to not let his anger blind him. Things he would go on to take to heart. Pierce honestly feels like a mirror image of Chris's younger self. He embodies the loyalty, naivety, and earnestness his captain once had. The final act of RE6 is where Chris's tragedy reaches its peak. In the underwater Neo Umbrella facility, Chris and Pierce face off against a giant BOW. During the battle, Pierce is gravely injured. Now a burden, and knowing that Chris would never leave him behind, he injects himself with the C-Virus to gain the strength needed to save the day and his captain. Fully aware that he's doomed either way, Pierce, in the ultimate act of self-sacrifice, saves Chris at the cost of his own life. Something that is devastating for Chris, since he is forced to watch as another partner, another soldier under his command, succumbs to the horrors of bioterrorism. Pierce's transformation and subsequent death leave Chris shattered, burdened by yet another loss that he feels personally responsible for. The game ends with Chris once again questioning his role in the BSAA, grappling with the never-ending cycle of violence and death that seems to follow him everywhere he goes. Yet, he still chooses to keep fighting. Unlike before, he doesn't end up broken. He knows full well that he must keep going for the sake of those that fought and died for him and the cause. Pierce's sacrifice fueled him to carry the will of his fallen comrades, to achieve the world they died fighting for. Resident Evil Vendetta added yet another chapter to the saga of Chris's tragic journey. The film opens with Chris leading a BSAA team into a bioterrorist attack, only to witness yet again how his entire squad is wiped out by a devastating ambush. This time orchestrated by Glenn Arias, a former CIA operative turned bioterrorist. The loss of his team is a brutal reminder of the heavy burden Chris carries. Despite his best efforts, those who follow him into battle often pay the ultimate price. This loss propels Chris's determination to stop Arias, but it also deepens the wounds in his soul. Throughout Vendetta, Chris is portrayed as a man on the edge, haunted by the ghosts of those he couldn't save, and driven by a relentless desire for justice or perhaps revenge, much like in RE6. His interactions with Rebecca Chambers and Leon S. Kennedy show glimpses of the camaraderie and humanity he still clings to. But the toll of his endless fight is evident in every decision he makes. Vendetta presents one of Chris's most personal battles. Arias is not just another enemy. He is a mirror image of what Chris could become if he is consumed by his grief and anger. Their confrontation is more than a physical battle. It's a clash of ideologies, with Chris representing the desire to protect others despite the cost, and Arias embodying the destructive potential of letting tragedy consume you. The final battle against Arias is brutal and intense, pushing Chris to his limits. And even though Chris ultimately prevails, the victory is once again bittersweet. Arias' death may have ended a significant threat, but it doesn't bring back the lives lost or ease the burden on Chris's shoulders. In the end, Vendetta reinforces the idea that Chris's journey is one of unending sacrifice. A fight that, no matter how many battles he wins, leaves him increasingly isolated and scarred. With every victory, he is left with more losses to mourn. Vendetta is a stark reminder that even as he saves the world time and time again, Chris is fighting a losing battle against the personal demons that haunt him. The ghosts of his past, the comrades he couldn't save, and the weight of a world that never seems to get better all contribute to the tragic figure that Chris has become. Resident Evil 7 marked a significant shift in the series, returning to its survival horror roots while also introducing a new protagonist, Ethan Winters. However, Chris's involvement in this chapter reveals the continued weight of his tragic journey and the complex role he plays within the world of bioterrorism. His appearance in the game's final act was a surprise for many, as he is now working with a reformed Umbrella Corporation, a shocking development given his history with the organization. This new Umbrella, supposedly dedicated to fighting bioterrorism rather than perpetuating it, is a controversial entity, and Chris's decision to align with them raises questions about his motivations and the toll that years of fighting have taken on him. When he arrives at the Baker estate, he is no longer the brash, impulsive soldier from his earlier days. Instead, he is a hardened, world-weary veteran who has seen too much death and destruction. His mission is to clean up the mess caused by the twisted experiments on the Bakers, who have been corrupted by the E-type bioweapon known as Evelyn. His involvement in this mission is a continuation of his lifelong battle against the horrors unleashed by Umbrella and similar organizations. But it also highlights the isolation and loneliness that have come to define his existence. He feels colder, more distant, and more exhausted than he's ever been. This attitude reflects the toll that years of loss and betrayal have taken on Chris. He has become so consumed by his mission that he has little room left for empathy or connection. This detachment is a defense mechanism, a way for Chris to cope with the constant pain and guilt that comes with being a soldier in an endless war. However, his involvement with the new Umbrella raises ethical questions. He is now working for an organization that carries the same name as the one that sent him into the never-ending spiral of death, guilt, and horror. Even if the new Umbrella claims to be different, Chris's decision to join them can be seen as a sign of desperation, a need to continue fighting the only way he knows how, even if it means compromising his principles. This moral ambiguity adds another layer to Chris's tragic character, as it suggests that he is willing to blur the lines between right and wrong in his quest to end bioterrorism once and for all. RE7 reveals a Chris that is more isolated and disillusioned than ever before. He has become a symbol of the endless cycle of violence and tragedy that defines the world of Resident Evil. Despite his victories, Chris is a man who has lost nearly everything, and the burden of his past weighs heavily on him as he continues to fight in a world where the lines between good and evil are increasingly blurred. Resident Evil Village continues the story of Ethan Winters and brings Chris's tragedy to the forefront in a deeply personal way. From the start, Chris's actions seem uncharacteristically ruthless, creating a sense of mystery and betrayal that looms over the entire game. The opening moments of the game are shocking. Chris, who has been a hero for decades, suddenly bursts into Ethan's home, seemingly kills his wife Mia, and kidnaps their daughter Rose. For players who have followed Chris's journey, this act feels like a betrayal of everything he once stood for. However, as the story unfolds, it becomes clear that Chris's actions, while brutal, are part of a desperate attempt to protect Ethan and Rose from a threat they cannot comprehend. Chris wants to stop Mother Miranda, a powerful bioweapon who has manipulated and terrorized the titular village for years. Her obsession with using Rose to resurrect her own dead child poses a global threat, and Chris is willing to do whatever it takes to stop her, even if it means alienating those he is trying to protect. His cold demeanor and secretive actions throughout the game reflect the burden of responsibility that has been placed on his shoulders. He knows that revealing the truth too soon could put Ethan and Rose in even greater danger. The revelation of Chris's true motives does little to alleviate the tragedy of his character. He is a man who has been forced to make impossible choices, sacrificing his own humanity in the process. His attempts to shield Ethan from the truth ultimately fail, leading to Ethan's death, a loss that weighs heavily on Chris. Once again, he is left to carry the burden of a world that seems to only bring him more pain and loss. His face when they part says it all. Chris is clearly thinking that it's happening again. Once again, he is forced to witness the demise of someone he swore to protect. Once again, a life under his watch has slipped away before his very eyes. After everything he has done to protect Ethan and Rose, he is left to reflect on the fact that his actions have cost Ethan his life, and left Rose without her father. As he carries her to safety, Chris is visibly exhausted and broken. The weight of his decisions, the losses he has endured, and the uncertainty of the future are all etched on his face. Despite his best efforts, he cannot escape the cycle of tragedy that has defined his life. This is all too apparent when Mia blames him for Ethan's death. The despair and guilt Chris feels is palpable. So much so, it hurts to see.
What have you done?
He's gone! I tried. He stayed so we could all escape. I'm sorry.
The events of Village further cement Chris Redfield as one of the most tragic characters in the series. His life is defined by endless sacrifices. Even his victories are overshadowed by loss. His role in this game highlights the devastating cost of his battle against bioterrorism. A cost that has left him scarred, isolated, and burdened with the knowledge that the fight is far from over, and that no matter how hard he tries, he cannot save everyone. While Resident Evil Death Island thankfully does not add too much to the tragedy that is Chris's life, it serves as both a stark reminder of it and a chance at some redemption. Main antagonist Dylan taunts the heroes by challenging their morality. Are they really the good guys? For Chris specifically, he points out that he always has casualties during his missions, and yet he always comes back with more people that will likely end up dead as well. He forces Chris to confront his demons, his tragic career, the many people that have laid down their lives in the name of justice. Chris ultimately comes to terms with all of this. He accepts that there is no other choice. no other way. So he decides to keep going, to keep fighting, proving that despite everything he's lost, despite how broken he may be, his determination, endurance, and desire to save the world and those he cares about allow him to stand up again and again and again, as many times as it takes. His chance to patch things up with Jill, on the other hand, grants him some much needed redemption and solace from the guilt and pain he still feels due to what happened to his dear partner back in and before RE5. She and her bond with him serve as a beautiful reminder that he has not lost everything. There are still things, there are still people left for him to protect. Things and people that are only here today because of the many sacrifices he's made and all the pain he has endured. Meaning that his unending tragedy has not been for naught. Chris Redfield's journey is one of resilience in the face of overwhelming adversity. He has faced unimaginable horrors, lost countless friends and comrades, and seen the world he fought so desperately to protect fall into chaos time and time again. Yet, despite it all, he continues to fight, driven by a deep sense of duty and a desire to make the world a safer place. But his relentless pursuit of justice has come at a great cost. Chris is a man who has sacrificed almost everything, his peace, his happiness, and even his humanity in the name of duty. He is the most tragic main character in Resident Evil, not because of the enemies he has fought or the battles he has won, but because of the toll it has taken on his soul, because of the man he has become. A hero who has lost almost everything in the pursuit of justice and still continues to fight, knowing that the cost of victory may be more than he can bear. A hero who is haunted by the ghosts of the past and burdened by the weight of his own conscience. Chris Redfield's story is a powerful reminder that heroes are not defined by their victories, but rather by the sacrifices they make along the way. And in his case, those sacrifices have been great, leaving him as a strong yet tragic figure in a world filled with unending horror. Chris Redfield, battle-hardened warrior, relentless protector, haunted soldier, guilt-ridden stalwart, steadfast brother, tragic hero, enduring sentinel, unyielding leader, unwavering defender of humanity. Thank you so very much for watching. Let me know how you feel about Chris and why in the comments below. Also, don't forget to drop a like and subscribe for more Resident Evil. Plus, check out some more videos just like this one by clicking the links on screen and in the description below.